And one of the things I do have to be grateful for, I guess, is how many people kind of have woken up in the past week or so. You guys are starting to realize that this is a much bigger problem than maybe you understood. And that's a good place to start, because we truly have a problem. And listen, I don't actually believe that Charlie Kirk's assassin was part of the queer Marxist left. I don't care that he had a trans partner. I know some of you think that's the most important thing in the world. I'm going to explain to you why that is not necessarily the most important thing in the world, okay? I don't care that he had a trans partner. I care whether or not they ascribed to queer theory. And queer theory is very, 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 very different than being trans. And so we're going to do today kind of a basic introduction to queer theory, to queer Marxism. I don't know exactly how far we're going to get. I have a whole bunch of stuff pulled up for us to look at, because you guys know I always look at primary sources. Well, here's the thing. Queer Marxists are not, well, queer Marxism is way further left than the DSA. I won't say that there aren't queer Marxists in the DSA. There are, but not that many. And the queer Marxists that are in the DSA are trying to pull the DSA further left. So queer Marxism is way, like, if you guys think, listen, if you guys think the DSA is the most leftist thing you have to deal with, bro, I'm about to blow your fucking mind. Okay? Another thing I want people to know is when I'm talking about queer Marxism today, I'm literally working on a book about queer Marxism. Okay? So here's the thing. So I have a different Substack. This is separate from my main Substack. And this is called the Red Menace Collective. The Red Menace Collective is my Substack where when I'm writing books, because I write a lot of books and I have a lot of books I'm working on right now, you can actually get access to the books that I'm writing before they become books as I'm writing them. So you can see over on the Red Menace Collective Substack, redmenacecollective.substack.com, I'm literally working on a book about queer Marxism right now. When I'm talking about the subject of queer Marxism, I'm not coming from a place of, I saw clickbait content on the internet. I have been doing deep research into queer Marxist subculture for about 3 years now. I have existed in this subculture. I've read their writings. I have gone to their events in person. I got possessed by a demon at one of their events. That's not a joke. I really, really did. Like some entity attached itself to me at one of their events. This was at the Transforming Gender Conference at the University of Colorado last year. I have gone through some shit to research and explain queer Marxism to people. And the reason that I do all this is because I truly believe that queer Marxism is the scariest thing going on the left that most people don't even know is going on. And most people don't understand. And so today, what I'm going to do is we're going to discuss what queer Marxism is. I'm going to walk you guys through a couple things. I'm going to show you some of the history and explain how we got here. I'm going to answer your questions, but I want people to really understand. I am not coming to this from a place where this is something I dabble in. I am I am obsessed with the left generally, but if there is one topic on the left that I'm obsessed with over all others, it is queer Marxism. This shit is insane. And so it's a good time to do an introduction to this. And yes, we are actually going to do this. Actually, why don't we do this right now? So, as an introduction to queer Marxism, I want to play you guys a song. And this song is actually from a queer Marxist punk band. And this song will explain to you what these people believe. Now, before we play this song, I want to make sure people understand this. Most of what you think you know about queer is wrong, okay? So you're going to have to unlearn some stuff, and I'm going to explain the difference between trans and queer and gay and queer as we get into this. So I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to break all this down, but I really need people to listen to the lyrics of this song because they are telling us what they believe, all right? Hey, thank you, Soul Quest. I really do appreciate it. Very generous super chat. Thanks so much. All right, so everyone listen to this song. The lyrics are right on the screen. And again, I didn't write this. This came from the left. Okay, so let me play it.
I don't wanna get married. I don't wanna be just like you. Nobody bothered to ask me. They said I ought to be just like you. Well, I could get a marriage license for a husband and me, so I could use the health insurance for my HART. Since I can file taxi with the same gender spouse, I shouldn't feel so bad getting kicked out of my house. Don't send me a rainbow. Your life is never done shit for me. Don't want a seat at your table. A fucking invitation to your party. Wanna celebrate a game on your cable TV. Well, trans lesbians are calling southern bodies stuff to eat. You paid the world for CEOs to suck on some dick. Well, all the kids on the street are gotten belted with friends. I don't wanna be equal, 'cause I know I'm fucking better than you. Your moderation is lethal. Get on my way, let me do what I need to. There's no protection that this nation's taking offer to me. Just solid fences do this is my gay bourgeoisie. So fuck off with your rainbow South American flag. The only colors that I need are the pink and the black.
All right, so that was the Dog Park Dissidents. If you guys saw the Queer Marxism project, that's a project that I'm working on through the Center for Left-Wing Studies to document the history and evolution of queer Marxism. But that song by itself laid out so many details about what queer Marxists actually believe. And so that's why we play it at the beginning, because it's like people think they understand queer. They have no idea. When we're talking about queer Marxism, we are talking about a very specific subculture that's been around for a really long time. And what I want to do is I want to go back and I want to explain some history to you guys. And we're going to walk through, and I'm doing this at a very high level, but this is history that everyone needs to understand. In the 1960s, okay, here is the constant tension that we're dealing with between what is the difference between gay and queer or trans and queer. In the 1960s, there started to be these gay activist movements that were popping up. Because, you know, you look at places in like New York and San Francisco, and there were gay people there, and they just wanted to be treated like everyone else. There was also another subset within the gay community that were flat out communists. And this started with the Mattachine Society in 1950. The Mattachine Society was a group of gay male communists that were being excommunicated from the Communist Party. And so they got together and they said, being gay is an oppressed class under communism. And they started creating a communist organization for gay people that laid the foundation for queer Marxism today. And what has happened is you have to think of this in two different groups, because not all gay people are communists. Not all trans people are communists. There are two distinct lines when it comes to gay activism. You have what I'm going to call the normie, Democrat, liberal, gay rights activists. These are people who you might not agree with being gay. That's fine. Whatever. I'm not going to have that argument. But normie gay rights activists are just normal people that want to be able to get married and don't want to be harassed. That's like literally all they want. They want to be able to get married, to be able to visit their partner in the hospital, and they don't want to be fired from their job for being gay. Those are the normie Democrat gay rights activists. These are what queer Marxists would call assimilationists. What that means is they are gay people who are trying to assimilate to normative capitalist society by being in monogamous relationships where they are just buying houses and having jobs and settling down and doing all that stuff. That is the assimilationist. That is the normie, Democrat, liberal, human rights campaign, Trevor Project, all that stuff. This is the subset that fought for gay marriage, okay? So keep that in mind. Assimilationists. Queer Marxists are anti-assimilationists. Everything that I just described about marriage, settling down, buying a house, getting a job, queer Marxists don't want to do that. So I just want to play for you again the first line of that Dog Park Dissident song. We're not going to listen to the whole song, but I want you to hear the first line of the song, okay? So let me just play this again real quick, just the first part.
I don't wanna get married. I don't wanna be just like you. Nobody bothered to.
Everyone hear the first part. The very first line in the queer Marxist song is, I don't want to get married. I don't want to be just like you. Queer Marxists never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. Because gay marriage, and I'm going to prove this to you, gay marriage is an assimilationist value. You guys all know that the far left wants to abolish the nuclear family, right? Well, the reason the far left wants to abolish the nuclear family is they believe the nuclear family is the production mechanism of capitalism. It reproduces capitalist values. So queer Marxists are anti-capitalist. Queer Marxists are anti-assimilationists. Therefore, queer Marxists are against gay marriage. And this is the constant tension that has existed in the gay rights space for decades and decades and decades, in that you had the normie gay rights activists, the Democrats and the liberals, that literally just wanted gay marriage. That was all they wanted. And then you had the queer Marxist activists that were coming up alongside of them, and they were anti-assimilationists, and they didn't want marriage, and they didn't want assimilation. They wanted to burn everything down. The reason that so many people think that gay and queer, or trans and queer, because this applies to trans people as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But just put, like, this applies to normal trans people as well. By normal trans people, I mean trans people who acknowledge the gender binary as a real thing. The normie gay rights activists have been seen alongside with the queer Marxist activists because they did have some things in common. And so there were times throughout history when the gay rights activists would actually work with the queer Marxists, and the queer Marxists would work with the gay rights activists. But that time has long since passed. And I want to take you through a little bit of the history of this so you understand this. One of the most famous events that people know about is the Stonewall Riot. The Stonewall Riot took place in 1969, and essentially it was the moment that marked the gay liberation uprising, okay? Now, here are some pictures from... Now, there were other riots before that, by the way. The Compton's Cafeteria Riot was in 1966, but you guys don't need to know that right now. What I want to point out, though, is here are some images related to the Stonewall Riot. What do we have right here? Stonewall. Oh, hang on. Let's get this up. See if we can go to the website and see if this is any bigger. Stonewall, the state, and the struggle for liberation. What is on this sign? It says Stonewall was a riot. Pink triangle. In one of the bookstores I went to when I was in New York, I picked up this book. I literally bought this the other day. What does it say? Stonewall was a riot against police brutality. This is an entire book about this. On the back, let me read you the back of what this book says. Oh, it actually says more. Stonewall was a riot against police brutality on whitewashing and queer resistance. The back of this book says, as queer, trans, and non-binary people, we need to stand in solidarity and action in our refusal of joining the status quo. That's anti-assimilationist, their refusal to join the status quo. We need to stay fucking mad and protest, donate and coalition build with each other, and actively work towards dismantling our white supremacist police state. That's what it says on the back of this book. I just bought this book 3 days ago at a queer collective in New York City. Okay. So what I'm showing you here is that these ideas, that Stonewall is a riot, the pink triangle, they've been around a long time. People were confused when I made that video last week about Charlie Kirk's assassin. And I said, there's no trans symbology, and if there is, it's going to be a pink triangle. So if there was no pink triangle carved into those weapons, ain't no queer Marxist activists. And people were like, Carlin, how do you know? I know because they've been using the pink triangle for decades and decades and decades very consistently. And so if someone is not using the pink triangle, if you're not seeing the pink triangle, it is not a queer Marxist activist. And listen, it might be a crazy person. It might be a crazy person that happens to be a furry. It might be a crazy person that happens to be gay. But that doesn't mean it's a queer Marxist activist. We have to be very nuanced when they're talking about these things, because queer activism is its own distinct movement, and it is incredibly dangerous. There will always be crazy people in the world, guys. Just because someone is crazy does not mean they are a far-left queer Marxist activist. But there's a lot of this shit showing up in the world, and once you learn how to identify the symbols, that's when you learn how to identify what's going on. So we can look back and see Stonewall is one of those things where queer Marxist activists today frame the Stonewall riot, again, which happened in 1969, as kind of a transition point where they were starting to get violent and militant. Okay? And so after the Stonewall riot came the queercore movement. Now I'm going a little bit fast, but essentially queer as one of the reasons that so few people understand queer activism today is they're going back and they're reading like Marx and Engels, and I call them the dead philosophers. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, Carlin, this is not what Marx and Engels believed. What you have to understand is queer activism, we call this gain of function Marxism. Queer activism is a mutated strain of Marxism. So think about the movie Contagion, right? That's the movie. Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow, the worldwide plague. In the movie Contagion, basically what happened is there was a pig and a bat flew into the pig's kind of like, area, and the bat shit on the pig, and then the pig got slaughtered and served in a restaurant, and the mutated strain of the plague that existed when the bat shit on the pig and then was eaten by Gwyneth Paltrow then led to a worldwide plague because it was gain of function. It was something that they hadn't seen before. It was a mutated strain of the plague, okay? Queer Marxism is a mutated strain of the fucking plague. And the place that it mutated is the punk subculture. So, not everyone involved in punk is queer, obviously. There were neo-Nazis within the punk movement. This is not to say that everyone involved in punk or who likes punk music is queer. However, in the 70s and the 80s, there was a movement within the punk community called the queercore movement. There have been books written about this. There have been documentaries written about this. This is where all this stupid gender shit came from. Because in the punk community, they were experimenting a lot with going outside of the gender binary. It's my contention that people like Judith Butler, people like Michel Foucault, people like David Halprin, people who are the defining queer theorists of our age that are in academia. It is my contention, and one of the things I'm arguing in the book that I'm writing, that all of these people were involved in this queer underground subculture, and the queer underground subculture influenced the academic ideas. And that is how queer as a Marxist strain mutated way the fuck away from traditional Marxism and became its own thing. So this is where it started to get really weird in regards to gender. This is where they started pushing a lot of these crazy like pronouns and looks and stuff like that. It all came from this punk community that was coalescing around the whole idea of being queer. And again, queer in this case is not about being gay. Queer in this case is about being anti-assimilationist, anti-capitalist, anti-normative. Is everyone tracking with where I'm going so far? I want to do a quick pause and I want to look in the chat. I want to see if everyone is tracking along with where I'm going, okay? You guys might hear the word normativity a lot. Normativity is a reference to capitalism. Normativity means the norms that uphold capitalist culture, all right? Everyone's tracking. Cool. All right. I want to play you a clip now. And this is a clip from when we watched a documentary about the queercore movement. And it's a little bit longer, but it's okay. I want to play you this clip because I want you to understand something about when you're hearing the word straight or heterosexual when it comes to the queer movement. So let me just get this set up. And this is not exactly the clip I wanted, but it was the one I was able to find. All right. We're going to watch this clip.
A person who functions normally in a sick society is himself sick.
That's what's happened a lot in the gay movement. The oppressed have become the oppressors.
In the late 70s,
in the gay movement, the oppressed have become the oppressors. That's a reference to homonormativity. That's a reference to gays assimilating to the reality of the straights.
Mid-70s, actually, people started coming out of the closet.
Mid-70s.
People who dragged their feet coming out of the closet, came out of the closet and immediately started forming committees. Where they tried to tell the rest of us, who were never in the closet, what we could say and what we could do. Oh, they wanted to be professionally gay. They wanted to be gay. They had meetings where they decided that we couldn't say dyke, we couldn't say fag, we couldn't say queer. Oh, they hated the word queer. Ooh, ooh.
So homonormativity emerged in the 70s. The queers didn't want to assimilate to normative culture, and then the homonormative gays were trying to get the queers to assimilate to homonormative culture in the mid-70s.
Losers, freaks, and deviants started the gay liberation movement, not these fucking control freaks.
The homonormative gays did not start the gay liberation movement. Liberation means to free oneself from capitalism.
We wanted them to go back in the closet. Now, all of a sudden, these same kind of people, now they all want to be queer. Well, they're not queer. Queer means you have no friends. Queer means that you have sustained a period of rejection, isolation, and exclusion so profound that it marks you as an outsider forever. Huh. You know, in the 60s when we said straight, we never meant heterosexual.
Oh!
We meant
Really? Hang on, what did they mean?
narrow-minded.
We meant narrow-minded. Let's listen to that again.
You know, in the 60s when we said straight, we never meant heterosexual. We meant narrow-minded. And
All right, I'm going to pause it there. The point I want to make with this is, and you can go back and watch this clip. All this stuff is, of course, archived and documented. The point I want to make is that when queer Marxists are using the term straight, they do not mean heterosexual. They mean someone walking the straight and narrow. Because remember, queer Marxism is an anti-capitalist, anti-assimilationist ideology. So when they're saying queer, they don't mean gay. So this person, Rick, said, but aren't they all gay? No. No. You do not have to be gay to be queer. You do not have to be trans to be queer. You don't have to be bisexual to be queer. You can be a straight white man and still be queer. Why? Because queer is a political ideology that wants to abolish all gender and wants to abolish the nuclear family. That is what they're doing. When they have sex as a political statement. It is not about being gay. So if you guys are just going, gay people are gross, that is a retarded take. Because there are a lot of people in the queer movement that are not fucking gay and are not trans. Does everyone understand? It's not about sexuality. There are many queer Marxists who have never engaged in same-sex acts. That's exactly right. So I wanted people to hear that directly from that clip. And again, that clip goes on for a minute, but I wanted you to hear directly from them. When they're saying the term queer, when they're saying the term heterosexual, they don't mean straight. They don't want, you heard me say it in this clip, they don't want gay people getting married and having families either. They consider that to be homonormativity. Homonormativity means gay people who are assimilating to capitalist norms by getting married and being in monogamous relationships, etc., etc., etc. Homonormativity is a slur in the queer Marxist community. If you're new to our community, it's imperative to remember a key word as you listen and learn: nuance. Without nuance, you will fail to learn. Hey, thanks, Dragon Balls. I really do appreciate that. That is 100% correct. Okay, so people are tracking. That's good. That's good. You mentioned that gays were excommunicated from the Communist Party. So yeah, it is true that back in the 50s during the Red Scare under McCarthy, gays were being kicked out of the Communist Party. Do queer Marxists dislike regular Marxists today? It's a good question. There are some Marxist groups that do not believe queer Marxism is Marxism. The Revolutionary Communists of America are one. But typically what happens is queers come in and they co-opt the group. So they may not get along right now, but they may get along in the future. And again, it's just a matter of, it's a matter of you have to look at the nuance of how they're talking and you have to understand the language. Okay? Yes. So when queer Marxists say straight, they mean normal, which means normativity, the norms that uphold capitalist society. When they say normativity, basically what they mean is you believe men and women are a thing because they want to abolish the gender binary. Okay, let's go back and talk about this. Okay. There are two goals that queer Marxists have. Number one, abolish the gender binary. The gender binary, they believe, is something created by capitalism. So capitalism, and I'm explaining what they believe. I'm not suggesting I believe this. I'm explaining to you guys what they believe, all right? And you can ask questions in the chat, and I will show you some videos that back this up. What they believe is, actually, you know what? Let's do this instead. I want to introduce you guys to Mary Bowman. So I'm going to explain what queer Marxists believe, and then you're going to hear Dr. Mary Bowman, who is a faculty member at DePaul University and a queer Marxist. You're going to hear Mary explain this, all right? So let me explain to you what you're about to hear. Queer Marxists want to abolish the gender binary because they believe that capitalism created the socially constructed categories of men and women. They do not believe that men and women are biological categories. The reason that Drag Queen Story Hour exists is to teach kids that gender is a spectrum. Changing your gender is as easy as changing an outfit. that it's fun to play with gender because you get to put on sparkle clothes and look like a cartoon character. That is the purpose of Drag Queen Story Hour, is to undermine the gender binary because they want to eliminate the socially constructed categories of men and women. That is why 44% of kids in school today believe that gender is not real. Does everyone understand? The biggest difference between trans and queer is that trans people oftentimes uphold the gender binary. So if someone is transitioning from being a man to a woman or a woman to a man, you might not like that, and there's certainly conversations to have around it. But what I need you to understand is if someone is transitioning from being a man to a woman or a woman to a man, then they still fundamentally believe in the categories of men and women. They uphold the categories of men and women. When they say trans, they mean transition. When queer Marxists say the word trans, they do not mean transition. They mean transform or transcend, as in transform gender away from the gender binary, or transcend gender to go above the gender binary. The term non-binary is designed to abolish the categories of men and women by creating a third category that is outside of the gender binary. Non-binary, they, them, means no binary. Does everyone understand? The reason that non-binary exists as a category today is because queer Marxists made it up because they're trying to get rid of the categories of men and women, and they needed to give people a third category in order to do that. Well, again, as I just explained, because listening is fundamental. When queer Marxists say the word trans, they don't mean transition. They mean transform or transcend. So if they're saying transcend gender, non-binary transcends gender. If they're saying transform gender, non-binary transforms gender from being two categories into something else. Okay? Does everyone understand? Why do they want to do that? Because if they can eliminate the gender binary, that means they will eliminate the nuclear family. Because the nuclear family relies on the gender binary to exist. It relies on the categories of men and women to be a thing. So they believe that if they can get rid of the categories of gender, that will itself undermine the nuclear family. Abortion is also part of this. Abortion is part of how they free women from the oppressive gender binary and stuff like that. We'll talk more about abortion another day. We're not going to do a lot on it right now. The reason that queer Marxists want to eliminate the nuclear family is because the nuclear family is the social reproduction method of capitalism. So if two people, whether those people are a man or a woman, or a man or a man, or a woman and a woman, if two people get, yes. Polyamory, yes, exactly. If two people get married and they have kids and they raise those kids in a capitalist home where they believe in monogamous relationships and stuff like that, that perpetuates the nuclear family. But if you queer the nuclear family through things like polyamory, not all polyamorous people are queer. I know polyamorous people that are not queer, okay? So I'm not suggesting every polyamorous person is queer, but a lot of queer people are polyamorous. And the reason they're polyamorous is they never wanted marriage to be legalized in the first place. They never wanted gay marriage to be legal in the first place. They don't believe in monogamous relationships because they believe monogamous relationships uphold capitalist society. Is there a meaningful distinction? Fucking yes. That is what we're explaining to you. Guys, if you walk into a very nuanced discussion about queer Marxism and you go, excuse me, is there really any difference? Shut the fuck up and listen. I want to thank some people for becoming members. Thank you, Kazmar, for gifting some memberships on the channel. Let's see who got a membership. Let's see. Charlie got one. Flutterbee got one. MetaGuide got one. A couple other people got them too. I don't know why it's not showing up in my chat for some reason, but it looks like Kino got one. Average Person got one. Congratulations to everyone who got a membership. And I did see Copper Cowboy, you got a membership earlier. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. Okay. So now I want to play you some clips from Mary Bowman. Okay? No. Shut the fuck up. We are looking at real world evidence today. We are not looking at the work of dead philosophers. Shut the fuck up and listen. How many times am I going to have to say that in this stream? Yes, I am. Yeah. Very good. Very, very good. Yes, I am. Okay. Now we're going to listen to some clips from Mary Bowman. And what Mary Bowman is going to say is basically what I just told you. But I want you to hear it directly from a queer Marxist. This is a presentation that Mary Bowman gave at the Socialism Conference in 2023. This was an abortion presentation, but Mary spent a lot of time talking about gender and the nuclear family. So I want to play you some clips. In this clip, Mary says she wants to destroy the nuclear biological family through relationship anarchy, sexual liberation, and queer relationships. Listen. Play.
But some of their fears may be legitimate, because destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great.
Mary is a professor at DePaul University in the nursing department. Moving on. In this clip, let's just listen to the clips. You guys can you just heard me explain it, so listen to Mary explain it. She's going to talk about the gender binary being a white supremacist invention. As a reminder, guys, when socialists and communists say white supremacy or whiteness, they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about capitalism. Capitalism being the system that upholds racism. So socialists believe that capitalism created all racism. And so when they're saying white supremacy, they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about capitalism. Okay? So now listen.
So on August 23rd, at the first debate of the U.S. Republican presidential primary candidates, multimillionaire Vivek Ramaswamy called for the abolition of the Department of Education. His argument hinged on how education starts in the home, and he closed by saying the nuclear family is the greatest form of government known to mankind. His glorification of the nuclear family is representative of the value set held by most on the far right. The idea that heterosexual cisgender couples with children are the beating heart of a free and prosperous nation. Underneath that belief, we see its ideological roots deep in the gender binary. The gender binary is a white supremacist invention born from men in power in the division of labor and care work in primitive Western Europe. I know Oliver, it sucks. Male paternity became the absolute determinant of heritable wealth and property as class society was developing. Men in power sought exclusive right to their power, and women were excluded from participation in power structures. Domestic labor and care work were feminized and devalued. The gender binary was one aspect of the cultural devastation wrought by colonization. Prior to colonization, indigenous cultures the world over had more than two genders, with trans and non-binary individuals often holding positions of leadership. Expansive, non-binary gender expression and reproductive autonomy through contraception and abortion are ancient, sacred practices, and their repression has long been a tool of white supremacy.
All right. That's our next clip from Mary. So you guys are starting to see how this comes together, right? Mary is telling you that gender binary is an invention of capitalism. Did everyone hear that? I know she used a lot of words to say that, but basically what Mary said is the gender binary is an invention of capitalism. All right, let's keep going. There's more clips.
When Ramaswamy hails the nuclear family as the greatest form of governance, he is saying that the oppressive binary gender roles necessary to maintain the nuclear family are where oppressive government policies begin. Binary gender contributes to the creation and maintenance of a lower class of marginalized genders, cis and trans women, other trans people, non-binary and gender non-conforming folks who can then be more easily dehumanized and exploited. This is our starting point, the gender binary and its oppressive function. Colluding with white supremacy, colonization, and capitalism, we find the gender binary and ideology behind attacks on abortion, the criminalization of pregnancy outcomes, the mass incarceration of Black and brown people, the separation of families at the border, the criminalization of trans existence. Anything outside its narrow stricture is threatening to it and thus will be a target of the right.
Okay. You guys getting it? If you guys are not hearing what I'm explaining to you in these clips, please tell me. But let's keep going. She lists off the things that are really happening that she claims the political right is using to fearmonger. I don't really remember what this clip says, but we'll watch it anyway.
The right uses fear as a political tool to build support for their policies and to encourage the consumption of their media. The fear of fetal personhood, the fear of Black fetal genocide, the fear of women abandoning the nuclear family, the fear of a queer culture that rejects the nuclear family, the fear of queer and trans adults indoctrinating children, the fear of trans women sexually assaulting cisgender women in public bathrooms.
So one of the things I really want people to understand is queer Marxists never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. And this is something that the conservative right really doesn't get, because there are a lot of people right now that are saying we should repeal gay marriage. We should repeal gay marriage. Well, guess what? And we'll talk a little bit more about this after we watch these clips from Mary. But if you guys repeal gay marriage, you are giving the queer Marxist left the biggest win that they have ever had in their literal existence. It is a horrible idea. And we'll keep talking about the topic of marriage, because let me tell you what, I have documents on my desktop right now. They tell you unequivocally they never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. It's assimilationist. They believe it's stupid. They don't want gay people to get married. Gay people should be radical anti-assimilationist, violent militant activists. Like, they are explicit about this in every possible way they can be explicit. And this is one of the ways in which conservative influencers have lied to their audiences. This is why I'm so pissed off at conservative influencers, because this wasn't new. Queer Marxists were arguing against gay marriage in the mid-2000s, and I'm going to prove that. They've always argued against gay marriage, but conservative commentators never researched, never listened, never told their audiences, and that is part of the reason why their audiences are so misinformed about the difference between normie gay activists and violent queer militants. And guess what, guys? The violent queer militants won. To do a spoiler alert, the violent queer militants are winning. They kicked the ass of the normie gay rights activists a long time ago, and if you guys overthrow gay marriage, they are going to shoot out into the public like a cannon in a way that you have never seen before. I don't know who said they're mentally ill. These people are not mentally ill. Only literal retards believe these people are mentally ill. This is another lie that conservatives like to tell. These people are not mentally ill. Mentally ill people don't organize the way they do. They aren't strategic the way they are. These are not crazy people shouting at the sky, guys. These people are highly organized. Every single time you call them mentally ill, you make it easier for them to win. So if you want queer Marxists to win, this is a great strategy. Keep repeating this bullshit talking point over and over and over again, and they will win, because it means you've dismissed them entirely. It is this talking point that has led to them being as powerful as they are. So keep dismissing them. Watch what happens. Let me just look in the chat. All right, so you're not listening, so now you're getting put in a timeout, and you can either shut the fuck up and listen, or you can leave, and the choice is entirely yours. When I take the time to explain something, guys, I expect people to listen. And if you don't, there's the door. Don't gotta be here. Don't let it hit you on the way out. Go away. Let's see. This is about destroying the nuclear family. We already watched this. This is about gender affirming care. We don't need to watch that. Okay. Here is what they really want. Okay, listen to this.
But that's Planned Parenthood, that's Gay Inc., that's, it's those organizations are claiming to be representative of our communities and then making deals with Democrats. Like, that's all then just stumping for Democrats and trying to get Democrats in office. And so that is not our movement. Those organizations do not represent the revolutionary spirit of both of our movements. And we cannot let them be the voice of our movements when they are losing. We lost. Their strategy is a losing strategy. So no longer can, I love yelling about Biden, let's do it, right? Look, all of their promises are fucking broken. We cannot depend on them for anything. So all of our fight has to come from below. We have to organize our workplaces, especially reproductive health organizations, especially places where trans people get care. Those unions can fight for better policies to take care of patients better, to make costs lower for care and for medications. I'd be happy to talk to the comrade from ARC about the cost of gender affirming care and how abortion funds can get in on it. I think that's brilliant.
I'm just going to stop the clip there because I really showed you everything you need to see. One of the things I need people to understand is we are not looking at Democrats. These are not Democrats. These are not liberals. These are not progressives. They hate the Democrats. They fight more against the Democrats than they do against conservatives. They did not vote for Kamala Harris. They did not vote for Joe Biden. These people do not believe in elections. They are not reformists. Reformists are the DSA. These are revolutionaries. Queer activists want to overthrow our entire society. They are not working in the two-party system. Does everyone understand? All right. Let's keep going. And I mean, Mary is pretty explicit about it being about revolution. Listen.
And yes, ultimately, and if that wasn't clear from the end of my talk, that will require a revolution. We cannot be free under capitalism. We cannot be free in this society as long as any person is in prison, as long as any person is denied health care for something necessary. No, that will never be free.
You see that? We will never be free until we're free of capitalism. Now, a lot of people make fun of the Queers for Palestine movement. I happen to have gotten a Queers for Palestine little zine. Look at this little zine. I got this the other day. This is a little zine from the queer bookstore I went to on queer solidarity with Palestine. If you understood what Mary Bowman just said in that clip, we are not free until everyone is free from capitalism. That is what Queers for Palestine means. That is what this brochure says. I'm going to post pictures of this on my Substack. You guys will be able to read it. But that is what this says. Queers for Palestine is not chickens for KFC. Queers for Palestine is saying we are all comrades in solidarity fighting for the overthrow of capitalism. The Palestinians are comrades. They believe the Palestinians are rightfully socialist, trying to overthrow their settler colonist oppressors, that is Israel. They believe that queers are comrades. They are trying to overthrow the oppressive capitalist society. That's what they mean when they say Queers for Palestine. It means we are all in solidarity in an anti-capitalist struggle against the oppressive system. Does everyone understand that? Let's go back. Let's go back. And I know people asking questions in the chat, guys. I just do have a lot to get through. Okay. So we talked about Stonewall. We talked about the queer core movement. The next thing I want to introduce you to is ACT UP. ACT UP was a movement in the 80s against Ronald Reagan doing activism against basically they wanted Ronald Reagan to talk about AIDS was what was going on. Let me just get this started. Andre, thank you. Holy shit. Thanks for showing the new viewers that these militants, they really do want a revolution and not a civil war. Thank you for the very generous super chat. I appreciate it. I should have had this pulled up. Let me show you the most famous symbol of the ACT UP movement. Give me one sec. Okay. The most famous symbol of the ACT UP movement is actually in a museum today. It's in the Brooklyn Museum. And it is this poster. What do you see on the poster? The pink triangle. Again, I told you, anytime we're talking about militant queer activism, you're going to see a fucking triangle. Sometimes it's going to be right side up. Sometimes it's going to be upside down. Most often today, it's upside down. This was the 80s. The triangle was right side up, okay? This is a symbol of the ACT UP movement. The ACT UP movement was a protest movement in New York City primarily. It still exists today, in which this was one of the early militant queer activism movements, because what they were doing is they were staging die-ins in churches. They were doing these big publicity stunts in Washington, D.C. to try to get Ronald Reagan to talk about AIDS, essentially. This was also an anti-capitalist movement. This is a movement that advocated for universal health care, things like that. And this was one of the first mass organizing things that happened around this type of activism. This was a precursor to the type of queer activism that we see today. This was in the 80s and the early 90s. So again, this is stuff that's been going on for a long ass time. In 1990, there was a zine created. No. See, now I have to go back and I have to explain this. What color is that triangle? Because conservatives have been pulling this shit for days and days and days. He had a triangle on his hat and therefore he is queer. What fucking color is that triangle? Did I say any triangle was a queer Marxist triangle? Or did I say a pink triangle was a queer Marxist triangle? There is no universe in which a white triangle, and by the way, it wasn't even a triangle, it was like a logo or something. There is no universe in which a white triangle is the same as a militant queer Marxist triangle. They are not the same thing. Every single time you retards say, well, he was wearing a triangle, so he must have been a queer Marxist. Was it a pink triangle? No, it fucking wasn't. The only excuse for it not being a pink triangle is if you're spray painting something on a wall and you don't have pink paint. So please, for the love of fucking God, stop advancing this stupid talking point. This has been in my comments for days. It was a fucking Adidas logo. That is not the same thing. All right. But you can see here, ACT UP was using the triangle all over the place. And I've done whole streams about the ACT UP movement. We've covered this extensively. It's probably something we're going to cover more. I'm going to be writing about it in my book. So I'm not going to go too much in depth to that. I just wanted people to have a frame of reference. So in the 60s, we had Stonewall. We had riots starting that were like queer liberation riots. In the 80s, we had the ACT UP movement. In 1990, at New York Pride, there was a zine handed out. Now, zines, this is the propaganda of the left. We don't read the philosophy of dead people. We read zines. Zines are small batch produced publications that tell you exactly what leftists think and exactly what leftists believe. Yuri Bezmenov is not even close to what we're talking about. Yuri Bezmenov doesn't account for any of this bullshit. I understand you saw a video one time that you really liked, but this is not Yuri Bezmenov. We have moved beyond that. It has evolved beyond that. Shut the fuck up and listen. Stop assuming you know everything. Queers Read This is a document we've covered on this channel. You can find a whole reading of it if you want. But this is a document that was handed out at New York Pride in 1990. And this was really kind of the start of when queer activism started to splinter from normie gay rights activism. So we're going back to the beginning. I told you at the beginning, there are normie Democrat gay rights activists that literally just wanted to get married and be able to visit their partners in the hospital. There were militant queer activists that were anti-capitalist, anti-assimilationists. Up through the ACT UP movement, they were kind of working together and they were kind of like helping each other out. In 1990, when Queers Read This was handed out at New York Pride, they started to splinter into two different movements. That's because you're not fucking listening. And this is a topic I'm not going to cover today. This is a topic that I have covered extensively on my Substack. Hey, Reagan, can you find the link to the Cheryl Harris videos? I want you to go watch the link that Reagan's going to put in the chat, but I'm not talking about this today. I'm not breaking this down today. You are being disruptive by bringing up a topic that is not related to what we're talking about. So shut the fuck up, listen, watch the link that Reagan is going to send you, and if you come back and are polite and actually stay on topic, I will discuss this another day. We are not doing this right now. This is not your fucking classroom. When this brochure was handed out at New York Pride, the two movements started to splinter. And there started to be a wide gulf between those two movements, where the normie gay rights activists were really starting to double down on the idea of gay marriage. They wanted gay marriage to be legalized. That was their number one thing. All of the nonprofits were trying to get gay marriage legalized, and that is what the normie gay rights activists were working on. Well, that was happening. The queer liberationists, the people who created this flyer, were basically going, why the fuck are you guys dedicating all these resources to marriage? We don't want to get married. We don't want to be in the nuclear family. This is a waste of resources. This is a waste of energy. And I'm going to prove this to you. I'm going to show you their documents. But this was the thing that started splintering the two movements, where they were starting to go in two different directions. And those two movements stayed splintered until gay marriage got legalized in 2015. So what happened, do you think, in 2015 after gay marriage got legalized? The normie gay rights activists went home. Because again, literally all they wanted was to get married and to visit their partner in the hospital. And once gay marriage got legalized in 2015, all of the Democrat, liberal, normie gays and lesbians, they were like, all right, we can get married now. We're done. We won. We won. Everyone was celebrating and high-fiving, and we had all these gay weddings going on all over the place. But the normie gay rights activists at that point had nothing else to fight for. They won. So they all went home. What happened then? My dog is piping in on this. My dog is having feelings about this because my husband just came home. I'll tell you what's going on. If it sounds like a child is being tortured in the background right now, that's just my dog expressing his excitement that my husband has just come home. There's nothing being tortured. He's not getting his tail pulled. He's not starving. He's just crying because he's very excited. No one accuse me of abusing my dog, okay? So, what happened when the gay rights activists went home? They basically left this massive void in all these nonprofits that were immediately filled by queer Marxists. Because again, the goal of queer Marxism is to overthrow capitalist society. And all of a sudden, all of the normie gay rights activists, they were done. They went home to go get married or whatever. And all of these queer people stood in and started taking their jobs in the nonprofits and the organizations and the institutions. And that is when you started seeing the rise of non-binary. When did non-binary start to become prevalent in America? 2015. Why did it become prevalent in America then? Because the queer Marxists took over the roles of the normie gay rights activists after gay marriage was legalized and the normie gay rights activists went home. There are now no normie gay rights activists that are still doing stuff in the world. The entire movement is controlled by militant queer Marxists, okay? So this is what we're dealing with right now. And this is why we saw non-binary explode. This is why we saw drag explode. This is why all this stuff happened. But I want to go back into the 90s and the 2000s a little bit because we need to talk about the bashback movement. So, the ACT UP movement was a queer Marxist activist movement. In 1990, they started splintering away from the gay rights movement. They went underground, and then in the 2000s, the bashback movement emerged. All right? Now, the bashback movement is violent, militant, queer activism. You might think of this as Antifa, but it's not Antifa. When Andy Ngo lies to the public and says Trantifa, Trantifa is not a real thing. Trantifa is something that Andy Ngo completely made up. He invented it as a branding exercise. It is not a real thing. But there is a real militant, violent movement within the queer Marxist community, and it is called the bashback movement. That is the proper name. And you can see the colors of the bashback movement are pink and black. There is actually a book that we've read on this channel. And we're gonna read some of their literature hopefully today, but I may not get to it. But there is actually a book, and I saw a print copy. They had a print copy of this book at the New York Anarchist Book Fair. They apparently found 5 print copies of this book, and they were taking bids. And I should have gone back and bid for it, but I didn't. So I actually just saw a print copy of this book. There is a book called Queer Ultraviolence, the Bashback Anthology, that is explicitly about the bashback movement. And this is when things really started getting violent. If you look in the bashback movement, they were attacking pride festivals. Look at this picture. They were attacking pride festivals. They were marching in pride parades. This is like Antifa, but it's not Antifa. It is a different organization than Antifa. There is overlap. But not everyone that is in bashback is in Antifa, and not everyone that is Antifa is in bashback. We have got to be nuanced about this. These guys were attacking churches. These guys were staging these. They were kind of like taking the cue of, look at this, queer liberation, not rainbow capitalism. This is an article about the bashback movement. Not gay isn't happy, queer isn't fuck you. That's from the bashback movement. Wanted radical queers, 1990 National Bashback Convergence. This was a bashback convention that happened in Chicago in the 2000s. Here's basically a history. So they protested the DNC and the RNC in 2008. They held massive summits. They attacked the Mount Hope Church. This was in Lansing, Michigan in 2000. So this was a real thing. This is violent queer activism, a little bit not safe for work there. And you can see they have a whole history behind it. The bashback movement still exists today. It's starting to come back today. Queer liberation, not rainbow capitalism. They are explicit about this, okay? One of the documents that I want to read with you guys is called Toward the Queerest Insurrection. Regulars on my channel have heard Towards the Queerest Insurrection like 8,000 times because it is the very best introduction to the bashback movement and to militant queer activism. Well, yes, except it would be a mistake to think they're all gay. They're not all gay. But we are going to read this at some point. This is a document that was written round about 2008, I think, by the Mary Nardini Gang. If you have never heard of the Mary Nardini Gang before, you will hear of them if you study queer Marxism with me because they are hugely influential. They wrote a paper called Be Gay, Do Crime, but that was their last one. Their first one was towards the queerist insurrection. So we'll hopefully come back to that, but I want to finish telling the story of this. So we have the bashback movement. Now, how many of you have seen this magazine cover? This magazine cover has gone viral on Twitter an awful lot. This is a very recent magazine cover from Portland, Oregon, okay? And actually, I have some stuff about this on my Substack too. Let me just go up here. Bashback. How many of you have seen this magazine cover? 1 in the chat if you've seen this magazine cover around the internet. 2 in the chat if this is new. This is a magazine cover that was published in Eugene, Oregon, not too long ago, a couple months ago. Did anyone read what it said? As the Trump administration attacks trans people, some queer folks are armed and ready to bash back. When they use the terminology bash back on this magazine cover in 2025, that was not an accident. That was not a colloquialism. The bashback movement is a real movement that started in the 2000s, directly evolved out of the ACT UP movement, which directly evolved out of the Stonewall riot in the 60s. Does everyone see the progression? And it was also influenced by the queercore movement in the punk subculture. So we're starting to see more and more and more militancy as the decades are going on. And now we see terms like bashback show up on magazine covers, and no one is explaining to conservative audiences when they say bashback, they're not referring to a nebulous concept. They are referring to a specific militant movement. And I know that because I'm the only one person to cover that the bashback movement has reemerged recently. And if you look, this is a video from a Turning Point USA event in April. What do you see in this image? Let's see if I can get the image to be bigger, maybe in another tab. No, it's going to stay the same. This is from a Turning Point USA event in April. What do you see in this image? Bashback with the upside down pink triangle. When I say the pink triangle is their symbol, I mean the pink triangle is the fucking symbol. If you do not see the pink triangle, then it is not the bashback movement, okay? 2 ladies, thanks for the super chat. Hey family, Carlin, I definitely wanted to drop my support again for everyone's work. Been a really rough last few days when my two friends passed away recently besides Charlie Kirk. I'm really sorry to hear that, 2 ladies. Thank you for the super chat. And there it is. There it is. See? Once you know the language, yes. Exactly. Exactly, KK. A fringe minority has successfully become the most successful cult in the world. 100%. Nope, not red and black, pink and black. Pink and black, not red. It's very important that people understand. But that's not the only place we've seen it show up recently. This was at a walkaway rally in Los Angeles, I think back in May or so. Look at that, queers bash back. The bashback movement released a new manifesto over the summer. And the manifesto called for buying guns, too. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can find it on the Substack. At the Los Angeles Anarchist Book Fair, back in May, bashback was a table. The bashback movement is reconstituting. You can buy bashback clothes. You might see bashback on stickers in neighborhoods. You can go on Blue Sky and look up the term bashback, and you're going to see all sorts of crazy shit. Okay? So that is what has led us to where we are. Does everyone understand? I just laid a lot out. I just laid a lot out for you. Yeah. Are you awake? This is what my book is about. This is literally the book I'm writing about queer Marxism right now. This is why I know all this stuff, guys. I've been researching it for 3 years, okay? I just laid a lot out. I want to do a quick pause, and I want to see how everyone is doing. Let me know in the chat if you have questions, and then we're going to read a document, okay? We have enough time to read Towards the Queerest Insurrection, so we're going to do Towards the Queerest Insurrection today. So the pink and black flag is the anarcho-queer thing. Yes. Anytime you see pink and black, they have their own flag, they have their own fucking triangle. That's queer Marxism. Bashback is the militant queer Marxist group. Yes. Exactly. It's a lot. I just told you a lot of information. I know. And what's more insane is I'm the only person teaching this on the internet. Everyone else is fucking lying. Andy No is lying to his audience. And this is why I give Andy No so much shit for saying Trantifa. By the way, I have told Andy No all of this. Andy No has been given all of this evidence in DMs, and he refuses to fucking look at it. I have sent Andy No so much information about Bashback and the Mary Nardini gang and all that. He refuses to look at it. He doesn't incorporate it, and he just keeps going, Trantifa, Trantifa, Trantifa. Trantifa isn't fucking real. It's not a real thing. And if people are chasing this mystical enemy that Andy No is making up, they are going to be missing the real enemy, and the real enemy is the fucking Bashback movement. That is the real enemy. Those are the violent queer militants, not fucking Trantifa. Trantifa is fake. The real enemy is the Bashback movement. And yeah, I do have the DMs with Andy, and I will show the fucking DMs if someone makes me do it, but it pisses me off to no end. So no one tell me to be easy on Andy No. I will not. Andy No is lying to millions of people every single time he uses the word Trantifa. He is inventing something that doesn't exist, and not only is he doing that, he is ignoring the real thing. He's ignoring this. He doesn't teach anyone about this. Again, this is not something that happened 20 years ago. These people were literally tabling at the Los Angeles Anarchist Book Fair a couple months ago. This is not abstract. They are back. Trantifa is not a real fucking thing. If you want me to answer that question, well, actually, hang on. No, this is not real. You guys are not listening. So, anyway, if you don't know who Andy No is, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. But a lot of people do, is the thing. So, yes, queer isn't about being gay or trans. It is a political ideology. Queer is a political ideology. It is not about gay or trans. It is an anti-assimilationist, anti-capitalist political ideology. Yeah, I've actually thought about doing an AMA, but just not today. We got a lot of stuff to get through. Okay. So what I want to do now, guys, is I want to go back and I want to read together, and we're going to do this with a little plugin I have on my computer. I want to read together Toward the Queerest Insurrection, okay? I want you guys to hear what this document says. Toward the Queerest Insurrection is a document written by the Mary Nardini gang. The Mary Nardini gang is a militant, violent, queer group that was founded in Milwaukee. Milwaukee in the Midwest. By the way, fun fact. Milwaukee and the Midwest is the home of queer Marxist activism. Milwaukee and the Midwest, Chicago, Indiana, Minnesota. This is where the Bashback movement was created, and this is where the Bashback movement was cultivated. And by the way, this happened under George W. Bush. This happened under a Republican president. The ACT UP movement happened under a Republican president. Queer militants love Republican presidents. So don't be under any illusion that Trump is going to save us. He is not going to save us. He doesn't even know this exists. This document is hugely influential. This document is one of the most influential documents in all of queer activism. So what I want to do is I want to actually just read this together so that you guys can hear what's in this document. Does everyone want to do that? One in the chat if you're ready to read this document and see what it says. Two in the chat if you're okay. If you're okay, you can go somewhere else, I guess. But we're going to read this document, regardless of whether you guys want to or not. I just want to know who's ready. That's can I talk about that another day, please? Can I talk about that another day? I'll answer that question, just not today. Okay, cool. Everyone's ready. Okay, let me get my little plug-in. Not that one, this one. And we're gonna read. If it works, and if it doesn't, I'll load it on a website and it'll be fine. Oh, come on. Just work, just work, just work.
Source, retrieved on September 6th. Some will read queer as synonymous with gay and lesbian or LGBT. This reading falls short.
See, it says right off the bat, the very first thing in this document, guys, actually, let me make this bigger. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys. The very first thing in this document, some will read queer as synonymous with gay and lesbian or LGBT. This reading falls short. This was written in 2008. They are telling you queer is not about being gay or trans. Okay? Right off the bat, immediately.
Some will read queer as synonymous with gay and lesbian. Some will read queer as synonymous with gay and lesbian or LGBT. This reading falls short. While those who would fit within the constructions of L, G, B, or T could fall within the discursive limits of queer, queer is not a stable area to inhabit. Queer is not merely another identity that can be tacked onto a list of neat social categories, nor the quantitative sum of our identities. Rather, it is the qualitative position of opposition to presentations of stability, an identity that problematizes the manageable limits of identity. Queer is a territory of tension, defined against the dominant narrative of white hetero-monogamous patriarchy.
Okay, I want to pause here. Queer is defined against the dominant narrative of white hetero-monogamous patriarchy. White is a reference to capitalism. We've already covered that. Hetero means to walk the straight and narrow or to be closed-minded. It's, again, a reference to normativity. It's not a reference to a man and a woman. We've already talked about how queer Marxists hate monogamy. They believe monogamy is a form of propertied relationships. They prefer polyamory to queer the nuclear family. The patriarchy is what they call the gender hierarchy. That is the idea that men are over women. That's created by capitalism. So literally, all four of these words, white, hetero, monogamous, patriarchy, are just different attacks on capitalism. And you're going to see as we go through this document, the ultimate goal of queer liberation is the annihilation of capitalism. That's almost a direct quote from this document. So that's what all those words mean, just in case people were confused.
Queer is a territory of tension, defined against the dominant narrative of white hetero-monogamous patriarchy, but also by an affinity with all who are marginalized, otherized, and oppressed. Queer is the abnormal, the strange, the dangerous. Queer involves our sexuality and our gender, but so much more. It is our desire and fantasies and more still. Queer is the cohesion of everything in conflict with the heterosexual capitalist world. Queer is a total rejection of the regime of the normal.
Queer is the cohesion of everything in conflict with the heterosexual. Again, that means normative. That doesn't mean straight. That means normative. That normative capitalist world. Queer is a total rejection of the regime of the normal. When I say they're anti-assimilationists, that's what that means. Anti-assimilation means being against normativity. Normativity are the norms that uphold capitalism.
As queers, we understand normalcy. Normal is the tyranny of our condition, reproduced in all of our relationships. Normalcy is violently reiterated in every minute of every day. We understand this normalcy as the totality. The totality being the interconnection and overlapping of all oppression and misery. The totality is the state. It is capitalism.
Capitalism.
It is civilization and empire. The totality is fence post-crucifixion. It is rape and murder at the hands of police. It is STR8 acting and no fatties or femmes. It is queer eye for the straight guy. It is
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy is an example of rainbow capitalism to queer Marxists. They didn't like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy because they believe it exploited them in order to make money for people, essentially. So that's why they're saying, like, they're saying it's Queer Eye for the Straight Guy in a way of saying, like, oh, fuck this, we don't like any of these things.
It is the brutal lessons taught to those who can't achieve normal. It is every way we've limited ourselves or learned to hate our bodies. We understand normalcy all too well. 3. When we speak of social war, we do so because purist class analysis is not enough for us. What does a Marxist economic worldview mean to a survivor of bashing? To a sex worker? To a homeless teenage runaway? How can class analysis, alone as paradigm for a revolution, promise liberation to those of us journeying beyond our assigned genders and sexualities? The proletariat as revolutionary subject marginalizes all whose lives don't fit in the model of heterosexual worker. Lenin and Marx have never fucked the ways we have. We need something a bit more thorough, something equipped to come with.
Oh. Hey, I was going to pause it anyway, but so I want to point this out. Lenin and Marx have never fucked the ways we have. We need something a bit more thorough, something equipped to come with the teeth gnashing to all the intricacies of our misery. What they're telling you is, this is not pure Marxism. This is a mutated strain of Marxism. They are explicit about it. They're like, Lenin and Marx, that's fine, but they've never fucked like we have. They've never dealt with the problems that we have to deal with. They've never dealt with this type of oppression. What we have is a different thing.
We need something a bit more thorough, something equipped to come with teeth gnashing to all the intricacies of our misery. Simply put, we want to make ruins of domination in all of its varied and interlacing forms. This struggle inhabiting every social relationship is what we know as social war. It is both the process and the condition of a conflict with this totality. 4. In the discourse of queer, we're talking about a space of struggle against this totality, against normalcy. By queer, we mean social war. And when we speak of queer as a conflict with all domination, we mean it.
By queer, we mean social war. They're talking about anti-assimilist social relations. How do we relate to each other and have social relations outside of the normative capitalist model?
See, we've always been the other, the alien, the criminal. The story of queers in this civilization has always been the narrative of the sexual deviant, the constitutional psychopathic inferior, the traitor, the freak, the moral imbecile. We've been excluded at the border from labor, from familial ties. We've been forced into concentration camps, into sex slavery, into prisons. The normal, the straight, the American family has always constructed itself in opposition to the queer. Straight is not queer. White is not of color. Healthy does not have HIV. Man is not woman. The discourses of heterosexuality, whiteness, and capitalism reproduce themselves into a model of power. For the rest of us, there is death. In his work, Jean Genet asserts that the life of a queer is one of exile, that all of the totality of this world is constructed to marginalize and exploit us. He posits the queer as the criminal. He glorifies homosexuality, too, and criminality as the most beautiful and lovely forms of conflict with the bourgeois world. He writes of the secret worlds of rebellion and joy inhabited by criminals and queers. Quoth Genet, "Excluded by my birth and taste from the social order, I was not aware of its diversity. Nothing in the world was irrelevant. The stars on a general's sleeve, the stock market quotations, the olive harvest, the style of the judiciary, the wheat exchange flower beds. Nothing. This order, fearful and feared, whose details were all interrelated, had a meaning: my exile. 6. A fag is bashed because his gender presentation is far too femme. A poor transman can't afford his life-saving hormones. A sex worker is murdered by their client. A genderqueer person is raped because Z just needed to be fucked straight. 4 black lesbians are sent to prison for daring to defend themselves against a straight male attacker. 3. Cops beat us on the streets, and our bodies are being destroyed by pharmaceutical companies because we can't give them a dime. Queers experience directly with our bodies the violence and domination of this world. Class, race, gender, sexuality, ability. While often these interrelated and overlapping categories of oppression are lost to abstraction, queers are forced to physically understand each. We've had our bodies and desires stolen from us, mutilated and sold back to us as a model of living we can never embody. Foucault says that power must be understood in the first instance as the multiplicity of force relations immanent in the sphere in which they operate and which constitute their own organization, as the processes which, through ceaseless struggles and confrontations, transforms, strengthens, or reverses them, as the support which these force relations find in one another, thus forming a chain or system.
Hang on. If you're confused, that's normal. If you feel like you don't know what's going on, that's okay. I'm going to walk you guys through the important bits of this, all right? So I'm not saying anything because I'm letting it play so that you can see the full document. But if you're confused, you're probably not the only one. I'm going to make sure I stop and explain the important pieces, all right? And please ask questions. Everyone's allowed to ask questions. I may not stop, but I know people in the chat who have read this stuff with me. They will answer them. So please ask questions in the chat if you have it. But just lean into being confused because there will be a time when it all becomes clear. But just lean into it for the moment, okay?
Through ceaseless struggles and confrontations, transforms, strengthens, or reverses them, as the support which these force relations find in one another, thus forming a chain or system. Or on the contrary, the disjunctions and contradictions which isolate them from one another, and lastly, as the strategies in which they take effect, whose general design or institutional crystallization is embodied in the state apparatus, in the formulation of a law, in the various social hegemonies. We experience the complexity of domination and social control amplified through heterosexuality.
Oh, so queer does not believe in medically transitioning? No. In fact, many of them don't medically transition. I mean, there are ones that do, but these people take hormones as a party drug. They take hormones when they go to a party because they get high from it. So no, you do not have to medically transition to be queer. They're actually very clear about this.
We experience the complexity of domination and social control amplified through heterosexuality. When police kill us, we want them dead in turn. When prisons entrap our bodies and rape us because our genders aren't similarly contained, of course we want fire to them all. When borders are erected to construct a national identity absent of people of color and queers, we see only one solution: every nation and border reduced to rubble.
Okay, everyone pay attention.
7. The perspective of queers within the heteronormative world is a lens through which we can critique and attack the apparatus of capitalism. We can analyze
The perspective of queers within the heteronormative world is a lens in which we can critique and attack the apparatus of capitalism. They are about to tell you that their number one enemy as queer Marxists is capitalism.
We can analyze the ways in which medicine, the prison system, the church, the state, marriage, the media, borders, the
Well, Brian, that's a retarded perspective because it's young people reading this. This was written in 2008. This is one of the most read documents of all young queer activists today. Every single person involved in the college encampments has read this document, I promise you. So that's literally retarded. Now I need everyone to shut up and listen. It says it over and over again, Scott. It literally says it, but you have to stop talking and listen. Everyone has to listen. No, queer isn't. No, that's not what I said. I said queer is an anti-assimilationist, anti-capitalist ideology. It's not a state of mind. It is a political ideology. Everyone needs to fucking listen.
We can analyze the ways in which medicine, the prison system, the church, the state, marriage, the media, borders, the military and police are used to control and destroy us. More importantly, we can use these cases to articulate a cohesive criticism of every way that we are alienated and dominated. Queer is a position from which to attack the normative more, a position from which to understand and attack the ways in which normal is reproduced and reiterated.
That's the family.
In destabilizing and problematizing normalcy, we can destabilize and become a problem for the totality. The history of organized queers was born out of this position. The most marginalized trans folk, people of color, sex workers, have always been the catalyst for riotous explosions of queer resistance. These explosions have been coupled with a radical analysis wholeheartedly asserting that the liberation for queer people is intrinsically tied to the annihilation of capitalism and the state.
There it is. Most important line in this entire document. The explosions have been coupled with a radical analysis wholeheartedly asserting that the liberation for queer people is intrinsically tied to the annihilation of capitalism and the state. And when they say the state, they mean the capitalist state and the capitalist government, because they believe the United States is a capitalist state, a capitalist government. They're telling you the liberation for queer people is intrinsically tied to the annihilation of capitalism. That is the enemy. That's what they're trying to overcome. That's what they're trying to abolish. And that means the United States government and the Constitution. Okay?
These explosions have been coupled with a radical analysis wholeheartedly asserting that the liberation for queer people is intrinsically tied to the annihilation of capitalism and the state. It is no wonder, then, that the first people to publicly speak of sexual liberation in this country were anarchists, or that those in the last century who struggled for queer liberation also simultaneously struggled against capitalism,
Boom.
racism, and patriarchy and empire.
All words that mean the same thing.
This is our history. 8. If history proves anything, it is that capitalism has a treacherous recuperative tendency to pacify radical social movements. It works rather simply, actually. A group gains privilege and power within a movement, and shortly thereafter sell their comrades out. Within a couple years of Stonewall, affluent gay white males had thoroughly marginalized everyone that had made their movement possible and abandoned their revolution with them.
So here is where they talk about homonormativity. Because remember, queer militants do not want gay people to get married. They don't want them to assimilate to normative capitalist values. And they're pretty pissed off at the white gays who just like threw the liberatory movement against capitalism aside in order to get married and to just have normal jobs and to buy stuff and stuff like that. So they're about to explain to you the difference between the assimilationist sellout gays, exactly, Andre, the sellout gays, and the anti-assimilationist queer Marxists. The shooter wasn't this. This is what I'm saying. This is how I knew the shooter was not a queer Marxist. He wasn't this.
Within a couple years of Stonewall, affluent gay white males had thoroughly marginalized everyone that had made their movement possible and abandoned their revolution with them. It was once that to be queer was to be in direct conflict with the forces of control and domination. Now we are faced with a condition of utter stagnation and sterility. As always, capital recuperated brick-throwing street queens into suited politicians and activists. There are vodka bin Republicans, and Stonewall refers to gay Democrats. There are gay energy drinks and a queer television station that wages war on the minds, bodies, and esteem of impressionable youth.
No. I'm trying to explain to you that it is the opposite of that. You need to shut the fuck up and listen. It is the opposite of that. You made that up. Either you aren't paying attention or you just made that up. So shut the fuck up and listen, because you've got it completely fucking backwards.
The LGBT political establishment has become a force of assimilation, gentrification, capital, and state power. Gay identity has become both a marketable commodity.
Here is where they're talking about rainbow capitalism. Again, the goal of queer liberation is to annihilate capitalism. They believe that rainbow capitalism, like pride festivals, like selling rainbow flags, like creating merchandise specifically to target gay communities, they believe that that is a capitalist assimilationist thing, and they hate it. So these people did not like pride festivals. They think it was exploiting gay people.
Gay identity has become both a marketable commodity and a device of withdrawal from struggle against domination. Now, they don't critique marriage, military, or the state. Rather, we have campaigns for queer assimilation into each.
Queer assimilation.
Their politics.
Now these gay Democrats, they don't even critique marriage, military, or the state. Rather, we have campaigns for queer assimilation into each. Anti-military, anti-war, anti-marriage, and anti-capitalism, that's what they mean when they say the state. Those are the three hallmarks of queer Marxism.
Rather, we have campaigns for queer assimilation into each. Their politics is advocacy for such grievous institutions, rather than the annihilation of them all. Gays can kill poor people around the world as well as straight people. Gays can hold the reins of the state and capital as well as straight people. We are just like you. Assimilationists want nothing less than to construct the homosexual as normal. White, monogamous, wealthy, 2.5 children, SUVs with a white picket fence. This construction, of course, reproduces the stability of heterosexuality, whiteness, patriarchy, the gender binary, and capitalism itself.
All right, this is the part where they define homonormativity, which is the normie gays assimilating to the straights. I'm just going to read this again. Assimilationists want nothing less than to construct the homosexual as normal, white, monogamous, wealthy, 2.5 kids, SUV, and a white picket fence. This construction reproduces the stability of heterosexuality, that means the norms that uphold capitalism, whiteness, which means capitalism, patriarchy, which is a reference to capitalism, the gender binary, which was created by capitalism, and capitalism itself. One of the things you have to learn about the left is that almost every single term they use is a reference to capitalism, but they're all different references. So basically what they're doing, people say like, oh, why don't they just say capitalism? It's a different aspect of capitalism. Whiteness is a different aspect of capitalism than patriarchy. Gender binary is a different aspect of capitalism than I don't fucking than getting a job, in corporate America. It's like they're attacking capitalism from all the different angles, and they're trying to attack it in as many ways as possible. So it's not as easy as just saying, like, colonialism is a reference to capitalism, imperialism is a reference to capitalism, environmental justice is a reference to capitalism. It's like they're attacking all the different aspects of capitalism because it's a monstrous system that they're trying to overthrow. But you have to understand that every single one of those words, it's all just references to a different aspect of capitalism. Yes, capitalism does live rent-free in their heads. Very, very true. And that's what intersectionality is, by the way. Intersectionality is all the ways you're impacted by capitalism.
This construction, of course, reproduces the stability of heterosexuality, whiteness, patriarchy, the gender binary, and capitalism itself. If we genuinely want to make ruins of this totality, we need to make a break. We don't need inclusion in a marriage, the military, and the state.
So they're pretty clear. We don't want inclusion into marriage, the military, and the state. They never wanted gay marriage to be legalized, and this was written 7 years before gay marriage was legalized.
We don't need inclusion in a marriage, the military, and the state. We need to end them. No more gay politicians, CEOs, and cops. We need to swiftly and immediately articulate a wide gulf between the politics of assimilation and the struggle for liberation. We need to rediscover our riotous inheritance as queer anarchists. We need to destroy constructions of normalcy and create instead a position based in our alienation from this normalcy and one capable of dismantling it. We must use these positions to instigate breaks not just from the assimilationist mainstream, but from capitalism itself. These positions can become tools of a social force ready to create a complete rupture with this world. Our bodies have been born into conflict with this social order. We need to deepen that conflict and make it spread.
Susan Stryker.
9. Susan Stryker writes that the state acts to.
Aha! Correct. Yeah. They believe race is also a construct created by capitalism. They believe, and I have the Denver Communists on video saying this, the Denver Communists literally said that whiteness is a reference to people who don't work in the sun. The boss, the owner, the capitalist class. Again, we can talk about this another day, but this is correct. Race is a construct of capitalism. It's not a biological thing, just like gender for them is a construct of capitalism. It is not a biological thing. We'll talk about it another day, bro. I'm happy to lay it out, but I'll talk about it another day. Can you please just focus on what's in front of us?
Regulate bodies in ways both great and small by enmeshing them within norms and expectations that determine what kinds of lives are deemed livable or useful, and by shutting down the space of possibility and imaginative transformation where people's lives begin to exceed and escape the state's use for them. We must create space wherein it is possible for desire to flourish. This space, of course, requires conflict with this social order. To desire, in a world structured to confine desire, is a tension we live daily. We must understand this tension so that we can become powerful through it. We must understand it so that it can tear our confinement apart.
So Ungovernable says, so I would assume the democratic socialists are also enemies because they use the capitalist system? Yes. Yes. And now you're getting into the difference between reformism within the left and revolutionaries. The DSA are reformers. They work within elections. They still want to overthrow capitalism, but they want to do it within elections. Revolutionaries don't believe in elections. They just want to overthrow the government. The DSA are reformers. Queer Marxists are revolutionaries. That's exactly right.
This terrain, born in rupture, must challenge oppression in its entirety. This, of course, means total negation of this world. We must become bodies in revolt. We need to delve into and indulge in power. We can learn the strength of our bodies in struggle for space for our desires. In desire, we'll find the power to destroy not only what destroys us, but also those who aspire to turn us into a gay mimicry of that which destroys us. We must be in conflict with regimes of the normal. This means to be at war with everything.
They believe they are at war with everything. This means to be at war with everything. They believe they are at war with you right now. They believe they are at war with capitalism. And they believe that capitalism exerts violence on them, and so it is their obligation to exert violence back. That is what the bashback movement is. This is why this is so dangerous. This is why it's so important people understand this. Because this is serious. This is part of their identity. It's part of who they are.
This means to be at war with everything. If we desire a world without restraint, we must tear this one to the ground. We must live beyond measure and love and desire in ways most devastating. We must come to understand the feeling of social war. We can learn to be a threat. We can become the queerest of insurrections.
We must come to understand the feeling of social war. We can learn to be a threat. We can become the queerest of insurrections.
To be clear, we've despaired that we could never be as well-dressed or cultured as the Fab Five. We found nothing in Brokeback Mountain. We spent far too long shuffling through hallways with heads hung low. We don't give a shit about marriage or the military.
Boom.
But we've had the hottest sex everywhere in all the ways we aren't supposed to, and the other boys at school definitely can't know about it. And when I was 16, a would-be bully pushed me and called me a faggot. I hit him in the mouth. The intercourse of my fist and his face was far sexier and more liberating than anything MTV ever offered our generation. With a pre-come a desire on my lips, I knew from then on that I was an anarchist. In short, this world has never been enough for us. We say to it, we want everything, motherfucker, try to stop us. Let's get decadent. Filth is our politics. Filth is our life.
Now, I don't want to do the appendix in this. You guys can read the appendix on your own because we're kind of running out of time. I just want to say this. There were a bunch of documents that were picked up by those people that shot up the ICE facility in Texas. Now, I know this is like a long time ago now, so people might not remember this. You guys remember how recently a bunch of leftists went and shot at an ICE facility in Texas? Does everyone remember this? The government retrieved a bunch of zines from those people. On those zines, it was written, "Let's get decadent. Filth is our politics. Filth is our life." That line from Towards the Queerest Insurrection was written on the zines that were picked up from the people who shot the ICE facility in Texas. When I say that this is one of the most influential documents on the activist left, what I mean is this is one of the most influential documents on the activist left. We see the language from this document show up all the time. So that's why it's important we need to read this stuff. This is why it's important that we need to understand the history of this, how it evolved, where it came from, what they're talking about doing next. And so that is what we study on this channel. We study their propaganda. We'll read more of their zines. We'll read more of them tomorrow. We don't have time today, but we will read more of them tomorrow. So come back. I stream at 5 p.m. tomorrow. How close are they to achieving all this? I think 10 to 15 years. I think they're pretty close. And the thing of it is what they're all waiting for is a revolutionary crisis. They don't know when the revolutionary crisis is going to happen, though. So basically, they're waiting for some spark of an event to set off the revolution. That could happen tomorrow. Excuse me. That could happen tomorrow. That could happen 5 years from now. That could happen 10 years from now. But they are trying to organize to be prepared to go when the pre-revolutionary crisis happens. So I think that, and I think they're closer than a lot of people think. So guys, that is all that we have time for today. I hope that was really helpful for you. Now, I do have more documents that we want to read, so we will continue this tomorrow. And you'll be able to see some more queer Marxist documents, and I'll show you some more stuff. But in the meantime, we have to end this stream because we are going into Spy Stream. Now, you can come and join us. Spy Stream is when we watch a live socialist training and talk about it. Spy Stream is going to be starting up around 7:30 p.m. You can join it by going over to my Substack and becoming a member. Spy Stream is supporter only because we want to keep it secret. But supporters are welcome to join and come watch. We are watching a live leftist organizing call tonight so that you can come and see what they really say. And of course, my Substack is the best way to support my work. If you appreciate me taking all the time to break this down for you, the years of research that I've done to look into this, to be able to figure out how to teach this to people. Listen, I'm not perfect. Obviously, I yell on the internet, but I'm really doing my best to try to break down this information in a way that people can understand it through books, through writing on my Substack, through doing podcasts, through doing streams like this, stuff like that. So if you appreciate the work I'm doing, guys, please head over to the Substack, sign up to support it. I am 100% funded by people like you. If people like you don't support my work, it doesn't get done, and I'm the only one doing this on the internet that I know of. So sign up, support it. Come back for the streams. If you can't afford to financially support my work right now, totally okay. I really do understand. But come to the streams. Listen to the content. Share it out. Teach people in your community. I'm trying to create more people like me, so there are many of us going out there talking about these ideas. That is the purpose of this. I need to take all of the information in my head and download it to you and teach you how to teach it, so we can create an army of people that are going out and teaching this information to the masses. All right? That is what we're doing here. I'm willing to bet they're trying to use Charlie Kirk as that revolutionary crisis. No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because again, they're not actually in their meetings. They're not really talking about it. Again, I was with them all weekend. If they were trying to use Charlie Kirk as a precursor for revolutionary crisis, they would have been talking about it. They weren't. They were just kind of like, oh yeah, that's stupid. Like they don't like Charlie Kirk, obviously, but it's not something that's really what they're thinking about as a revolutionary crisis. But I do appreciate the super chat. I appreciate you stopping by. Guys, we will continue this tomorrow. So I will have more queer Marxism. We will read more queer Marxism zines tomorrow, just like this one. This zine we're going to read tomorrow. I was hoping to get to it today. We didn't have time. I don't bash back. I shoot first. We're reading this tomorrow. Okay? So come back to the stream. Come back. 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on this channel, on YouTube, Rumble, Kick, X. Subscribe to the channel. Mount the like button for me on the way out the door. I do have to head out because we have to go get ready for our spy stream. But I will see you guys tomorrow. And thank you guys for being here and listening. I really do appreciate it. Great class. Not too much retardation. I was actually pretty pleased with the chat. Not a whole lot of retardia going on in the chat today, so that's good. People are taking this seriously. That's what's required. All right, guys. That's all I got. I'll see you guys soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer. I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that? trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.